casket while he was walking into Air Force Two. So again, personal touches here from the vice president. The FBI director, I think it was also important that he said that he knew Charlie personally. So again, it really underscores, again, the fact that this is an administration that is really in mourning, and also talked about the fact that, of course, they all talked to the widow, which is Erica, his wife, and saying that that she's devastated, and that they also are heartbreaking and really sad for her as well. So it really does underscore that.
And their two young children. Yumi Schelsendorf, thank you for joining us. And that does it for us today. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you back here Monday. For now, I'm Ana Cabrera reporting from New York. Chris Jansing continues our breaking news coverage after this.
Let's go!
Good day, I'm Chris Jansing, live at MSNBC headquarters in New York City. We got him. Officials announcing the manhunt has ended and they've found their suspect in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The new details we're learning about him, how he landed in custody, and the disturbing messages that were found written on bullet casings. Plus, we will go live to Capitol Hill for reaction to the arrest and the widespread security concerns after the assassination as lawmakers scaled back their public events. And the governor of Utah urging the public to log off, not view the videos of Kirk's killing that spread rapidly online. We'll talk to a child psychologist about the impact of graphic, violent videos and whether it's time to restrict what can be online. A lot to get to on a Friday, but we start with that breaking news. The governor of Utah, alongside FBI Director Kash Patel, confirming that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah has been taken into custody in the shooting death of Charlie Kirk.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident.
The suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period.
Robinson has not been charged yet. That is likely to come next week. But while the investigation is ongoing, the governor says there's no current information that might lead to any more arrests. Today's press conference gave us our first indication of what may have led to Wednesday's shooting. Family members told police that Robinson had become more and more political in recent years, apparently discussing Charlie Kirk specifically and the reasons he didn't like him. But how that developed into a plan to allegedly shoot and kill the conservative activist is unclear. Director Patel said today they are still running down leads, 11,000 of them at last count. But it is clear that they feel they have their man, a stunning breakthrough at a time when law enforcement had appeared to be at loose ends, admitting just last night they still didn't have a name of a suspect or any idea where he might be. I want to bring in NBC's Aaron Gilchrist in Utah. Peter Baker is chief White House correspondent for the New York Times and an MSNBC political analyst. Ed Davis is former Boston police commissioner who helped lead the manhunt for the Boston Marathon bombers. Aaron, I understand we just got the probable cause affidavit, so bring us up to speed. What does it say?
Yeah, a producer here in Utah with us has been able to obtain some of the documents that have been filed so far. We're still going through some of that information, but it does detail much of what the governor said in the briefing here earlier today. There was some indication of what the officials here hope to be able to charge Mr. Robinson with at some point over the next couple of days. The governor said they do have a few days to finalize the charges that they will bring against Mr. Robinson. At this point, though, we do know a few details about how this arrest came to be. You noted, and the governor said in his remarks here, that it was a family member and a family friend who helped deliver Tyler Robinson to law enforcement in Washington County. Washington County and the area where we believe he was ultimately taken into custody is about a 3.5, 4-hour drive away from where we are at Utah Valley University. And so there was a considerable distance between here and there that Robinson was able to go before he ultimately was brought into custody. These documents, these court documents, also indicate that the arrest of Mr. Robinson was actually made today, as opposed to last night, where he was taken into custody last night. But the arrest, the booking photo that we've been able to see apparently happened at some point today. We don't know at this point whether he has been talking. We were told by the governor that there were interviews done with family members and Robinson's roommate in Washington County in the overnight hours, and they were able to get some information that led them to believe he, to some degree, confessed or implied that he committed the shooting here on Wednesday afternoon. And then investigators were also able to look at some messages, they say, between Mr. Robinson and his roommate on his roommate's phone, and there was a reference to a rifle in some of those messages. I want you to hear some of what the governor had to say about that.
The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique.
And so we heard the governor and FBI Director Kash Patel laying out quite a few details, more than we expected to hear from them about the arrest and about the development of this investigation at this point. I think partly to explain to the public why they feel confident that this person that they've arrested is the person who committed the crime here. And Chris, I think it also gives us an idea about what sort of information will be presented when this case goes to trial at some point in the near future.
Aaron, thank you for that. So, Commissioner, you know what it's like to be in the center of a high-profile manhunt. And in the end, the key events were very similar, right, in that you had a video, stills from the video, tips from the public. President Trump actually talked about that this morning. Take a listen.
Inscriptions on the three
was a minister, and the minister went to a minister who's involved with law enforcement, by the way. And his good friend is a top U.S. Marshal, and they took it from there. And then it was a father got involved, namely his father, and said, "We got to go in." And they, so they understand it. And again, subject to change, but you know, the facts are the facts. We have the person that we think is the person we're looking for. But they drove into the police headquarters, and he's there now.
Commissioner, tell us your thoughts on what investigators laid out today.
Well, Chris, it really was a remarkably transparent press conference today. We got a lot of information that I was not expecting, and some of it was very damning. The conversation with his roommate, for instance, is going to go toward almost a confession of the incident. It seemed as though he was trying to get the roommate to go after and recover the gun, but that's my speculation on it. So that kind of evidence is devastating in a prosecution. But overall, 33 hours is a very short period of time to go from nothing as far as an ID to being able to have this guy in custody. Clearly, his father played an enormous role in this, and he's to be complimented. I cannot imagine the stress that he went through during the course of this process. The bottom line is a very dangerous criminal is off the street, and it was done in record time with great transparency. So I'm very happy with the way this thing worked out.
One of the more interesting pieces of information was about the engravings found on bullet casings, and here's what the governor said about that.
Inscriptions on the three unfired casings read, "Hey fascist!" Catch! Up arrow symbol, right arrow, and symbol, and three down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao," and a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "Catch Fascist," there's not, and by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this.
I wonder what you make of that, what it tells you in the overall investigation and as they go to begin putting together a case?
Well, for me, first of all, it shows premeditation and a political motive, an extremist that we're dealing with here. But also, some of these things don't make a lot of sense, and it almost seems like there might be some type of psych problem here. It would be hard to drill down into that and get an understanding of what they're not congruent, those statements. So I don't quite get it, but that's not unusual when you're dealing with somebody that decides that this kind of violence is appropriate, and we're probably right on the edge of psychological breakdown or some type of psych problems.
And that's why they say, let's be clear here, we're continuing our investigation. But in the meantime, Peter, it was unconventional, I think we could say, but not necessarily surprising that President Trump made the arrest announcement, even as he said he might not be getting all the details right. We heard him say that. But let's talk about the context, because Kash Patel has been under a ton of pressure here. So much so that the White House actually put out a statement this morning defending him, saying in part, Director Patel is working night and day on this case. Anyone who doubts his resolve and dedication is using this extremely sad moment in a disgusting act of political gamesmanship. Does the White House see this as vindication for Patel?
Well, certainly better that they've got this man in custody right now than it was last night when people were asking those kinds of questions. Kash Patel, of course, had relatively modest experience, let's say, compared to other FBI directors when he came in. So he was on the hot seat here. This is the first big test in some ways of his leadership. He went there personally. He took this personally. This is somebody who traveled in the same, political circles as he did. And I think obviously he was very relieved this morning at that press conference. First thing he did, of course, was to thank President Trump, which suggests, the focus that he has on making sure that he stays in the president's, best graces. But this, we'll see where this goes. Obviously, we only have begun to unearth where this case may take us and what the FBI and local authorities will discover about the shooter and where it, what it tells us about our politics today. But it's a fascinating moment. You're right, to see the president himself make that announcement almost in a seemingly off the cuff kind of way on a morning show.
And I think you laid out importantly the two important facets of this. One, obviously, is the ongoing investigation, the legal case that will come out of it, but also what it means for our politics writ large. The governor, Peter, tried to appeal to people not to use Kirk's death as fuel for more violence. Let me play what he said.
Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Especially those ideas with which you disagree.
Usually in the aftermath of something like this, Peter, we're talking about, will anything change in terms of, say, gun laws? Will anything change in terms of mental health legislation or helping people who clearly have mental health problems? But this is a different thing. This is very much tied to political discourse. And are there serious conversations going on that you're hearing about how do we bring down the temperature in this country?
you hear these conversations, and of course the governor's expression there is what you would expect of a leader at a moment like this, trying to tamp down the flames that have been roaring through our politics in the last few years. And there are lots of voices on Capitol Hill, both Democrats and Republicans, who are making similar kinds of gestures and speeches and statements, calling for a de-escalation, if you will, on all sides. At the same time, the louder voices, they may not be the majority, but the louder voices in our politics are, of course, engaging in blame for one another and ratcheting up the rhetoric rather than ratcheting it down, talking about the radical lunatic left and that left is evil and the left is this and that, while ignoring the fact that, of course, violence has played out across the political spectrum in recent years, whether you count the assassination of the two Minnesota lawmakers, Democrats recently, the burning of the Democratic governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, January 6th, the attack on Paul Pelosi, and so forth. But if we saw the assassination attempts against Donald Trump, two of them last year, not change the overall political discourse, I don't know whether this will or not. Has it shocked the conscience of a country enough to say, let's rethink how our politics is being communicated these days, how we have these debates, which are important and vital to a democracy, without inflaming people who might take it the next step?
So let me bring in former FBI Supervisor Rob D'Amico. Look, Rob, there was a back and forth at the beginning of the press conference. When you get a suspect in 33 hours, not a lot of people got a lot of sleep. They were talking about maybe an hour or 90 minutes if they were lucky. This investigation, though, isn't over. Maybe they'll get a few hours sleep, but the FBI, other law enforcement, are putting together a case that they believe they can make pretty airtight. So right now, what are they doing beyond what we already heard, what they have at this point?
Well, the priority is, one, if he is talking to investigators, if he's talking to detectives or agents, you want to be able to support that interrogation. With electronics, you want to really rapidly start looking at that. Emergency search warrants and getting that down. Obviously, the priority of safety is gone, that he's captured, but you still want to have whatever is tangible right now, and that's if he's discussing the case with anyone, you want to support that. Everything else kind of takes a back seat because that's the timeliness of the investigation. Otherwise, though, you have teams now that are going out. They're looking at physical search warrants about places that he resided, maybe his roommate's place, his family's place, all the different places that he may have been. You're looking at cellular data now. You have his phone number. You can start looking at where he went from that location to where he was arrested to figure out if he stayed anywhere, if he dumped anything, how long he'd been there. And then you're looking at prior to. So everything kind of comes into a priority now, but the investigation's exploded at this point. And you have different teams doing different things, being run by a certain case agent or lead detective, dictating what's in priority with resources. But that's where the federal agents will come in, being able to do search warrants to support the local detectives that are doing the interviews. And it's a well-documented thing. The FBI's done it forever. So you have people there that know how to do it, and they're supporting it and just putting in the resources. But everything kind of timely and resources of what is private. Now, if he is not talking, then things slow down a bit because you want to make sure you do it right to make sure those search warrants and that evidence stands up in court. So you want to really cross the T's and dot the I's to make sure that all that legal paperwork is correct when it goes in a judge. So when you get results, you know it's going to stand up in court.
Rob D'Amico, Peter Baker, Ed Davis, thank you all. In 90 seconds, reaction on Capitol Hill to news of this arrest, plus the growing security.